My young friends, in this short session, let us remind one another of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for you. The love Allah has for me. The love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for the whole of mankind. Every single one of us. Everything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. My young friends, it is only because of the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His fazl and karam, that you're here. If there was no love, if there's no fadl, my young friends, you would never be here. You're not here on your own accord. Nobody has the power to do good. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah wa ma tawfiqi illa billah. Nobody has the power to do good. Nobody has the power to refrain from evil. Everything, my young friends, is Allah's fazl. Everything is by Allah's love. My young friends, the love of Allah knows no bounds and no limits. Without doubt, He is the Arhamur Rahimeen, the most merciful, the most kind. How does Allah introduce Himself? When He begins the Quran, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allah's telling you all praises are for Allah. Why are all praises for Allah? He is the one, the only one, the Lord of what is out there. And at the same time, Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, the most merciful, the most kind. His love and mercy knows no bounds and no limits. You and I can't even dream of the vastness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love. We can't even begin to think about it, never mind understand it. It knows no bounds and no limits. Your wujud, existence, my wujud, existence, is only by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It is only by the love of Allah, by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fazl and karam. Your existence, my existence, is only by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You are today wherever you are, whether you're a doctor, whether you're an imam, whether you're an engineer, whether you're a pharmacist, whatever you are, it is only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's loves, it is only by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's fadl and karam. Your salvation, my salvation, will only be by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Not because of your a'mal. What are your a'mal in comparison to what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you? If my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, and who is Rasulullah? Does my Nabi need an introduction? His reputation exceeds him. Even those that didn't even believe in him would say what? As-Sadiqul Ameen, the truthful one, the Amanat-Dar, the trustworthy. How much did Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam worship Allah? How much? My young friends, there were times when he would spend the entire night in prostration. Entire night in prostration. How can one stay in prostration the whole night? You and I peck. Like birds peck when they're eating. We put our head down and before you know it, it's already up. Try prostrating for 5-10 minutes, see what happens to your shoulders. When it exceeds 15-20 minutes, and then watch how you will feel the pain and you'll struggle to stay in prostration. How does one stay in prostration the whole night in that position? What drives him to do that? The love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he would spend the entire night reciting what? One verse. إن تعذبهم فإنهم عبادك وإن تغفر لهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم. This was the worship of Rasulullah. When he would stand in prayer sometimes, you and I, our practice is such that most of us, قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. In the first rakat, in the second rakat, in the third, in the fourth. In Fajr Salah, in Zuhr Salah, in Asr, Maghrib, Isha. On a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. From the moment you are born till the moment that you die, we don't get past that. This is our namaz. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 4 minutes, come to an end. Prophet ﷺ, his life, his day and night was worship. He'd convey the message. That's worship. And when he would retire and stand before his Lord, if you open the books of a hadith, my friends, you'll come across narrations like, he would read the whole of Surah Baqarah in one rakat. Surah Baqarah is around 2.5 juz. And he wouldn't come to an end there. After Baqarah, he would begin Ali Imran. After Ali Imran, he would begin Surah Nisa. That's a few paras in one rakat. You know, we just said Maghrib namaz. You know, if your Imam, let's say, began with started reciting Abasa wa Tawalla, for example, after namaz you'd kill him. Doesn't this guy know that I've got places to go and things to do? Why didn't he recite Inna a'tainaka al-kawthar? Would that not suffice? This is how weak we've become. And the Prophet ﷺ is reciting how many surahs, how long these surahs? A few juz. And how was his recitation? Every letter that he recited could be heard and understood. Just imagine the Makkah Imams reciting 5-6 juz in one rakat. Who could stand behind them? We struggle with Taraweeh. And then the Prophet ﷺ, if he came across a verse that was talking about Jannah, he'd ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for Jannah and then continue. If he came across a verse that was talking about Jahannam, the Prophet ﷺ would stop. He'd seek protection from Jahannam, and the Prophet ﷺ would then continue. He would ponder over the verses. This was one rakah, he'd go into ruku. How long was his ruku? It wasn't just as matter of Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim, Subhana Rabbi al-Azim. That ruku would be as long as the qiyam. Sometimes in tahajjud. When he would come out of ruku and stand in qawma, Sami Allahu liman hamida, Allahumma rabbana wa lakal hamd, that qawma would be as long as the ruku. When he would go from qawma into sajda, that sajda would be as long as the qawma. And then the sitting in between, and then back for the second sajda would be as long. That was just one rakat. Prophet ﷺ in general would offer 8 rakats for tahajjud. How long would his tahajjud take? He would stand before the Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for so long that his blessed feet would swell. And the Sahaba, when they would see him like this, they would say, Ya Rasulullah, why do you exert yourself and stand before the Almighty Allah and worship for so long that your feet swell. And the Prophet ﷺ would say, أَفَلَا أَكُونَ أَبْدًا شُكُورًا. If this is the case, that Allah has purified Muhammad ﷺ, shouldn't this be an incentive for Muhammad to increase his worship and be a grateful slave? So the Prophet ﷺ would exert himself. This was just salah. Then the Prophet ﷺ would fast Mondays and Thursdays. Then on the 13th, 14th and 15th, when Ashura came, the Prophet ﷺ would fast. Then in the month of Sha'ban, majority of the times, he would either keep the whole of Sha'ban or most of Sha'ban, he would fast in preparation of Ramadan. And then what to say of the Prophet ﷺ's worship in Ramadan? This is the month in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy descends in abundance. And the worship of the Prophet ﷺ would increase in Ramadan. His du'as would become longer, his qiyam would become longer, his ruku would become longer, his sajda would become longer. And in the last 10 days, he would become Allah's guest. He would come to the masjid and not leave. Balki even inside the masjid, he would put up a tent and he would seclude himself so that nothing comes between him and his Lord, and his soul, heart and mind is focused only upon his Khaliq and his Malik. His day was worship, his night was worship. His interaction with his wives was worship, his interaction with the believers was worship. My young friends, in spite of this, the Prophet ﷺ said, nobody will enter Jannah because of his a'mal. So the Sahaba was shocked and said, okay, Ya Rasulullah, they couldn't understand for themselves. They couldn't understand for themselves, but they knew the Prophet ﷺ, and they knew how he exert himself and the worship that he would do. They said, Ya Rasulullah, not even you? Sayyid al-awwaleen wal-akhirin, Muhammad al-Amin, Shafi'ul Mudhnibeen, Rahmatul Alameen. Not even you will enter Jannah because of your a'mal? The Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, وَلَا أَنَا إِلَّا أَن يَتَغَمَّدَنِي اللَّهُ بِرَحْمَتِهِ. Even Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam will not enter Jannah without the mercy of Allah, till Allah doesn't cover Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam with his mercy. This is Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Where does this leave you and I? Every single thing, my young friends, is by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every step that you take is by the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and by the love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Every breath that you take is by the mercy of Allah and by the love of Allah. Every morsel that you consume with ease, no matter how small that morsel may be, is by the love of Allah and by the mercy of Allah. My young friends, the day Allah takes one of these blessings is the day you will understand this philosophy. You're sitting here before me here and now. This thought has never crossed your mind that you can ever become blind. You're looking at me and I'm looking at you. I'm delivering a reminder and you're listening to the reminder. And as I'm looking at you and you're looking at me, all of a sudden your eyes start watering, your vision becomes blur, and you're realizing that your eyesight is becoming weak. You don't know what to do. What you start doing is rubbing your eyes, thinking it will go away, it'll become better. But every time you rub your eyes, it's becoming more fuzzier, and your eyesight is becoming weaker. Now you're becoming parishan. As you're sitting there, you begin to sweat, when all of a sudden you realize it's totally dark, you can't see anything. Now all of a sudden, ضاقت عليكم الأرض بما رحبت. The earth, in spite of its vastness, will become tight upon you. You won't know what's hit you. you'll begin to panic, you'll become more anxious, you'll begin to sweat more, you'll begin to worry more, you won't know what hit you. Within a zillionth of a second, from a totally independent person, you came as a totally independent person. Within a zillionth of a second, you become a totally dependent one. Never mind going home. I swear by His name, you will not be able to leave this gathering and get to that door without the help and assistance of another individual. Now, my young friend, if this blessing and ni'mat that you've received and took for granted was sold in the market for £1 billion, and Allah bless you with that much wealth, I have no doubt that you'll give that wealth to purchase yourself a pair of eyes. Because for you, your life has now become meaningless, because you can't see anything, you can't do anything. It is only the absence of Allah's love and Allah's mercy do people like yourself and I realize Allah's love and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And we've taken it for granted. So much so that everything we attribute to ourselves, we believe we've become something today because of some quality that we possess. It's not Allah's fazl, it's not Allah's love. The day, my young friends, Allah deprives you or me is the day you and I will realize everything is by Allah's mercy. Our wujood is by Allah's mercy. Our existence is by Allah's mercy and love. Our sitting here is by Allah's mercy and love. You listening to this reminder and acknowledging it is by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love and by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love and mercy knows no bounds and no limits. My young friends, you are no ordinary individual. From Allah's creation, what does Allah say? وَلَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي آدَمَ. We've honored the son of Adam. وَفَضَّلْنَاهُمْ عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِمَّنْ خَلَقْنَا تَفْضِيلًا. And we've given the son of Adam superiority over many of our creations. You are that creation to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given excellence. You are that creation to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given superiority. And then out of those to whom Allah gave superiority, my young friend, you are that individual. Inna Allah azza wa jal idha ahabba abdan a'tahu al-iman. Inna Allah azza wa jal idha ahabba abdan a'tahu al-iman. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala loves an individual, this is when Allah gives him the gift of Iman. What is Iman? What is this gift? My young friends, you will realize on the day of judgment. Meet Allah on that day without Iman and offer Him not an earth full of gold, but offer Him a universe full of gold and say, oh Allah, let me be, take this in ransom, do not punish me. Allah says, فَلَنْ يُقْبَلَ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمْ مِلْءُ الْأَرْضِ ذَهَبٌ وَلَوْ افْتَدَى بِهِ. It will not be accepted. Come on that day with nothing in terms of the dunya, but you possess an iota of Iman. تُنْجِيهِ مِنَ النَّارِ تُنْجِيهِ مِنَ النَّارِ تُنْجِيهِ مِنَ النَّارِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, this individual, he will attain salvation because that zarra of Iman will save him from the fire of hell. Not only are you from Allah's creation to whom Allah has given superiority, my young friends, you are from that creation to whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given the gift of Iman. Musa alayhi salatu once said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Wallah, give me a special dhikr. I'm Musa, the Kaleem of Allah, with which I can remember you with. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Musa, say La ilaha illallah. Musa said, Oh Allah, but everyone says La ilaha illallah. I'm the Kaleem, I'm the one that converse with you. I want something specific and special for me. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Oh Musa, you haven't understood. If the 7 heavens and the earth were placed in one part of the balance and this La ilaha illallah in the second, it would outweigh the 7 heavens and the earth put together. This is the gift that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you. My young friends, for this short session, how much love do you think Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for you? Hadith comes to mind. Hadith of Sayyidina Umar Farooq radiyallahu ta'ala anhu. The scene is of a battlefield. The enemy is fleeing, looking for a refuge, looking for a safe haven. There's chaos on the battlefield. In the process, cousins, relations have been separated. Mothers from their children, children from their mothers. Brothers from sisters, sisters from brothers. There's a mother, she's lost her child. Everyone's looking for refuge, looking for safety. Everyone is concerned about themselves and giving priority to themselves. A mother is a mother at the end of the day. And the only concern that she has is of her child. And she's looking for her child on the battlefield. Where's my child gone? Every child that she comes across, she embraces the child. And she places the child next to her chest. And she begins to feed the child. This scene is unfolding right before the eyes of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is looking at this and can see this. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he saw this, he asked the Sahaba, he said to the Sahaba, أَتَرَوْنَ هَذِهِ الْمَرْأَةَ طَارِحَةً وَلَدَهَا فِي النَّارِ. Tell me, this woman, you see this woman that is feeding this child, do you think this woman will ever, if the need arises, throw her own child in the fire? This woman that has so much love for other children, children that do not belong to her, at a time when people are concerned about their own safety and looking for a refuge and safe place to go, she has no fikr and no concern for her own safety. She's jeopardizing her life, and she's picking up children that don't even belong to her. She's embracing them and she's feeding them on the battlefield. If a woman has that much love for children that do not belong to her, tell me, my dear companions, can a woman like this, can a mother like this ever throw her own child inside the fire? The Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala ajma'in replied in one voice, La ya Rasulullah, this can never happen. This can never happen. Woman has so much love, why will she ever throw her own child in the fire? Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Allahu arhamu bi'ibadihi min hadhihi biwaladiha. Allahu arhamu bi'ibadihi min hadhihi biwaladiha. Allah has more love for His servants than this mother has for her child. In another hadith emphasizing exactly the same point, there was a majlis. Prophet ﷺ is there, the Sahaba sitting with him, participating in this majlis. And a Sahabi comes, he's carrying a bird with its young in a piece of cloth. He comes to the Prophet ﷺ and he relates, Ya Rasulullah, O Messenger of Allah, I took these young ones from their nest in the absence of the mother. When the mother wasn't there, I went to the nest and I took them. And I placed them in this piece of cloth that I had. When the mother came back from wherever it was and realized, I just left the nest and realized that I've taken them, the mother came and started flying around my head, encircling, hovering around. I opened the cloth a little, and as soon as she saw her flesh and blood, she rushed to embrace them, and she covered them, protecting them. Now this Sahabi had never seen anything like this before. And he was amazed that even animals have love, compassion, and mercy. This is why he came and he expressed this to the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ understood and realized that he's surprised at what he witnessed and saw. So the Prophet ﷺ said to him, are you surprised at the love this mother has for her children? I swear by the one that sent Muhammad as a Nabi, I swear by the one that sent Muhammad ﷺ with the truth, the love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for his slaves is far greater than this. In another hadith it's mentioned, the love 70 mothers have for their children. The love 70 mothers have for their children, if that was taken, placing one upon the balance, and then the love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has for his servant, the latter will outweigh the former. Now the objective of this hadith is not tahdeed, to confine and restrict the mercy and love of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The objective of this hadith is to show the enormity, the vastness and the magnitude of Allah's love, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love knows no bounds and no limits. Just look at this hadith. It mentions 70 mothers. Forget 70 mothers, my young friends. Look at the love of one mother. Where will you and I ever be able to comprehend the love of a mother? We're not mothers. Without doubt, you have love in your heart. Everyone has love to some degree, compassion, mercy to some degree. You're a father, you'll have the love of a father. You're a brother, you'll have the love of a brother. You're an uncle, you will have the love of an uncle. My young friends, you can have the love of an uncle, you can have the love of a brother, you can have the love of a father, but the love of a mother is unique. It's very different. We can't truly comprehend it. Forget any mother, just look at your mother. You know your mother, I know my mother. My young friends, tell me about your mother and her love. What doesn't or what hasn't your mother done for you? Or what doesn't she do for you? My young friends, a mother is such that when you're born, when a child is born, she's now a mother, she stops living for herself. She doesn't live for herself. When she gives birth, now she's living for that child. Her primary concern is the child. In everything, she will give preference to you. And her love knows no bounds and no limits for you. She is now dead. What she wears doesn't concern her anymore. What she eats or what she will eat doesn't concern her anymore. She has no desires for herself anymore. Her desire is your desire. Her need is your need. Her want is your want. My young friends, now you are always preference. She will wear rags and she'll give you preference. so you can wear the best, you can wear the designer names, and she will never tell you that she's struggling. She will eat the morsels that you've left and give you preference. If the need ever arises, she will sleep on the floor so you can sleep on the bed. When you're ill and not feeling well, what will she do? She will spend the entire night embracing you, cuddling you, holding you in her arms, placing you next to her heart and chest. And in the morning, she will go out to work to provide for you. How many mothers, my young friends, how many mothers have not seen their child because she hasn't given birth to the child? The child is still in her mother's womb. You're in your mother's womb. She's never seen you. She's never touched you. She's never embraced you. She doesn't know what you look like. She doesn't know what you'll become, whether you'll become obedient tomorrow or disobedient, whether you'll have a regard for her or not. But my young friends, how many mothers, when they've gone to deliver you and they're in labor or in pain and it goes wrong, she encounters difficulties while she's giving birth to you, and the doctor approaches her and says, okay, today I have bad news. Unfortunately, I cannot save both lives. I can only save one life. Tell me, which life should I save? Your life or the life of your child? My young friends, how many mothers at that point, without thinking for a second, without deliberating, she's still young, 20 years of age, 21. What life's that? That's nothing. That's nothing. She's got years. She's got dreams. She's got aspirations. How many mothers at that point, without jijab, without thinking, at that point give preference to the unborn child and say to the doctor, okay, don't be worried about me, I've lived my life, save the life of my child. This is, my young friends, when she's never seen you, held you, touched you. This is the love that Allah's placed in our heart. If this is the love of one mother, your mother, add to this the love of 70 mothers. And I just mentioned the objective of this hadith is not the hadith to confine and to restrict.